Good morning, colleagues. A very warm welcome to you all on behalf of the Director General, Human Resources, Ministry of the Public Service, and the Director, Learning and Development Directorate. Thank you so much for joining this webinar on using performance improvement plans in the public service. My name is Alison Bess Sullivan, Senior Human Resource Officer acting at the Learning and Development Directorate. I am your moderator for today's session, and with me is my co-host, Ms. Dawn Marie Linton, Human Resource Officer acting also from the Learning and Development Directorate. As we commence this morning's webinar, please note the rules of engagement for the presentation. As much as is possible, please pause or minimize distractions as we wish to reap the full benefits from this presentation. As the presenter goes through the presentation, take some time to reflect on your own experiences or issues you may wish to share. We also invite you to share your comments or observations or pose your questions using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. There will be a question and answer segment at the end of today's webinar presentation. At the time of the question and answer segment of the webinar, your contributions will be shared with the presenter, who will then respond via audio. Please note also that today's presentation is being recorded, and this recording will be posted to the Learning and Development Directorate's YouTube channel. To alert you when this recording is available for viewing, a message will be sent via email blast. At this time, I wish to introduce to you your presenter, Miss Wendy Eversley. Miss Eversley has recently retired from the public service after serving over 40 years. Within those years, she has worked in several ministries and departments across the public service. Her final assignment was that of Senior Administrative Officer in the Prime Minister's office. She has also worked within the former Performance Review and Development Unit for over 10 years as a project officer, and would have worked with several ministries and departments to implement the Performance Review Development System, which is known as PRDS. She is a Christian and loves encouraging and helping others. Join with me in welcoming our presenter, Miss Wendy Eversley. Miss Eversley, over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bess Sullivan, for that kind introduction. A blessed good morning to everyone on this webinar this morning. It's a pleasure to present to you this webinar on using performance improvement plans in the public service. So let's get right into this webinar. And our aim in this webinar is to sensitize supervisors and managers about the role and benefits of a performance improvement plan and the advantages that they provide in managing performance across the public service. So it is hoped that by the end of this discussion, you will be able to state the purpose and benefits of utilizing performance improvement plans, explain the role of the supervisor or manager when implementing a plan, list the minimum components of an effective performance improvement plan, and describe how a performance improvement plan is used to manage poor performance. At this time, as a public officer, you may or may not know what a performance improvement plan is. So we will now go to a poll at this time to gauge how many of you on the call know what is a performance improvement plan. So on the pop-up screen, you will see the question posed. Do you know what is a performance improvement plan? And I want you to click yes or no as your response. So thank you for your response. Do you know we have 59% saying yes and 41% saying no. So let's see what is our definition of a performance improvement plan. Thank you for your participation. According to SHRM 2023, a performance improvement plan, or PIP, also known as a performance action plan, is a tool used to give an employee with performance deficiencies the opportunity to succeed. It is used to address failures to meet specific job goals or behavior-related concerns. Before we go any further, the Annual Performance Review and Development System, or PRDS, is designed to ensure discussion and agreement between supervisors and employees as we go through our progress meetings during the period July to August and November to December, respectively. However, if at the time of the annual performance review, the employee's performance is rated at 2, which stands for needs development, or 1, which stands for unacceptable, the manager or supervisor then develops a performance improvement plan with his or her employee in order to improve the employee's performance. I am emphasizing here that as the PRDS reports forms the basis for determining poor performance. You may then ask, how does a PIP address failures to meet specific job goals or behavior-related concerns? The PIP outlines the steps an employee needs to take to meet agreed upon standards and goals. It is a formal action guide created in collaboration with the employee and their supervisor or manager. So let's see the purpose of a PIP. Arising from a PRDS appraisal meeting, a PIP would apply to an employee whose performance has slipped, become inconsistent, or otherwise needs improvement. Here, we give thought to deficiencies as outlined in the Performance Review and Development Systems guidelines at 5.2.1, dealing with unsatisfactory performance. And as I would have highlighted before, the progress meetings provide the opportunity for improvement and success. The PIP therefore results from an unsatisfactory performance. At 5.3.1 within the PRDS guidelines, the supervisor develops with the employee a plan to address the identified performance difficulties. Particular organizational or personal factors affecting the employee are taken into account. The PIP becomes a part of the employee's new work plan. If after 2 progress meetings for the new work plan, the unsatisfactory performance has not been resolved, the supervisor makes appropriate recommendation to the next level supervisor, who decides the action to be taken. As it says, it provides opportunity for improvement and success. Overall, a PIP can provide opportunity for improvement and success as it addresses failures to meet specific job goals by specifying skills or training the employee lacks. Additionally, it helps the employee see their shortcomings and allow them to fix those problems with support from their supervisor or manager. At this point, we're going to launch a poll to gauge your knowledge of the benefits of a performance improvement plan. Okay, the results of that poll are that 94% is in agreement that it provides a pathway to success. 77% it encourages engagement. And 58% it provides documentation on negative or positive action. So thank you for your presentation. So let's see those benefits. It provides a pathway for success, as you rightly said. It provides documentation on negative and or positive action. It encourages engagement between the supervisor and employee. It also enforces managers to convey clear goals. It is tailored to the employee's professional needs and highlights their deficiencies. It encourages accountability and efficiency as it teaches the employee to value their work. These benefits help employees feel valued when they know that they have the backing and support of the manager or supervisor in reaching their work objectives. The organization also benefits as it creates a more highly productive and motivated employee, allowing the organization to reach its overall goals and objectives. As a supervisor, your overall role during PRDS is to clearly communicate expectations, provide employees with tools, training, and information to succeed. So the role of the supervisor or manager during a PIP is no different. So we're now going to see the role of the manager or supervisor in a PIP. They may seek to determine if a PIP is appropriate, administer all PIPs in conjunction with the head of department and or permanent secretary, and provide ongoing guidance. So let us discuss these points in further detail. The supervisor or manager should determine whether a PIP is appropriate and should therefore consider the following 3 factors. The actual performance of the employee. In other words, the supervisor or manager should ensure that the actual performance deficiency stated in the PIP has been clearly communicated to the officer and documented in the officer's PRDS report prior to its implementation. This is done to determine if the issue is a new or an ongoing one. If the issue is new, a PIP may not be considered at this point. Has the employee received adequate training to succeed at the task assigned? The supervisor or manager must consider this point, as additional or specific training targeting the concern may be all the employee needs to succeed and complete the task efficiently. Personal behavioral issues of the employee. Personal issues have to be considered. We all know when personal issues occur, it may result in low employee performance. However, if a reasonable period has passed and all other interventions have failed, a PIP may serve to help the employee refocus and get back on track. So let us look at another scenario. An employee may confide that he or she has a challenge with substance abuse. Let's say, for example, alcohol, which may result in behavioral or performance issues. One factor that should be considered is to whether the employee needs counseling, which can be sought through the Employee Assistance Program, EAP, instead of a PIP. The supervisor or manager must first consider these situations before determining if a PIP will be beneficial to the employee in order to improve performance. The supervisor manager should administer all PICs in conjunction with the PS or head of department. This would assist in the implementation of the plan. This would include supporting the implementation of the plan, where the supervisor or manager informs the PS or head of the department. In other words, if the issue has reached that level of the PS or head of department. It ensures deficiencies are addressed. The supervisor or manager should verify if deficiencies highlighted in the employee's PRDS coincide with that of the PIP and is addressed therein. Reinforces clear goals and expectations. As supervisor or manager, you should make sure that the goals and expectations in the PIP are realistic and clearly stated. You must also reinforce that all objectives and timeframes are fair and reasonable. Our third point relating to the supervisor manager's role in the PIP is provide ongoing guidance. The supervisor or manager should provide guidance to the employee on legislation. For example, referring to any allegations of an officer's negligence in the performance of duty. In this case, one can refer to the Public Service Act, Third Schedule, Code of Discipline in the Public Service, as specified in paragraph 27B1 of the Code of Conduct and Ethics, which falls under misconduct of a serious nature. Additionally, one can also be guided on the penalties attached to this behavior once a disciplinary charge is proven. Training and development. Guidance is also critical for training and development, as the supervisor or manager can recommend specific training where a deficiency exists. For example, if the officer lacks communication skills while performing his or her duties in that office, the supervisor or manager can recommend training courses in communication or customer service skills. These are some examples where the role of the supervisor or manager is that of a coach and mentor in providing guidance where necessary. So now we are going to look at implementing the plan. Once the need for a PIP has been determined, the supervisor or manager would need to create a plan. Implementing the plan involves a discussion with the employee. This is where the supervisor or manager refers to the recent PRDS meeting, where poor performance was identified and the need stressed for improvement. The employee can also provide feedback on areas of concern at this stage. We will now discuss the components of a PIP. On this slide, we have 7 components which should be used as a guide when implementing the plan. These are general information, 2, purpose of a plan, 3, areas of concern, 4, improvement goals, 5, activity goals, 6, follow-up or updates, and 7, expectations. Before we examine these components in greater detail, I want to share with you a template of a PIP. So this is what a template of a PIP looks like. So I'm going to give you a minute to examine that template before moving on. So let's examine these components. Component 1 consists of general information on the employee, such as their name, post, and their assigned ministry or department. Also included is the section in the supervisor's manager's name and the start and agreed end date of the plan. According to SHARM 2023, a typical performance improvement plan lasts anywhere between 1 to 3 months, depending on how long it would reasonably take to improve the specific issue. It may be a bit longer depending on the issue. Component 2 states the purpose of the plan. The purpose should be clearly stated and well substantiated so the employee understands why they have been placed on a PIC. Example could be to define performance areas of concern and implement a plan to improve those areas. Component 3, under areas of concern, specifically lists those areas of concern. This is important as it helps the employee recognize areas with respect to their performance and expectations in relation to his or her current duties that require urgent improvement. For example, persistent late delivery of agreed targets. In component 4 of the plan, under improvement goals, this is where you list the goals related to the areas of concern to be improved. Example, delivery of first quarter targets in a timely manner. Component 5, the activity goals, consists of a detailed action plan to help the employee execute his or her duties. This action plan breaks down each task in steps from start to finish. For example, submission of a cabinet papers is a goal. You break down the steps relevant to submitting a cabinet paper to the supervisor and list the performance standards in relation of the timelines and required resources. Remembering the aim is to partner with the officer to ensure that the performance improves. Component 6 consists of follow-ups or updates. This is a timetable which provides both the employee and the manager or supervisor with scheduled meeting times during the activities goals. Remember that it is critical that you as a supervisor or manager meet the officer at specific points to ensure that the officer is meeting the agreed targets as scheduled. This is where the employee may state any challenges encountered in the process of completing their activity goals. The manager or supervisor should encourage the employee to lead the meeting and self-report on how they believe they are doing. At this stage, if gaps in training or required tools become apparent, the manager or supervisor should provide those as soon as possible. Our last component, expectations, will differ depending on the goals of the employee as set out in the PIC. Employee expectations are set by management and can include the type of behavior, performance, work tasks, or outcomes required to achieve the goals of the organization. So far, we have covered the 7 components of the PIC. I will now take you through these 7 components once again, given the current scenario. Mr. Samuel King, Senior Training Officer, Ministry of Justice has prepared a performance improvement plan for employee Mr. Mark Nkosi, Training Officer, Ministry of Justice. Mr. King informed the officer by memo that he had been placed on a pay due to serious areas of concern in his work performance, as highlighted in his PRDS appraisal meeting. Mr. Nkosi was given a final rating of 2, which stands for needs development, as he only achieved 50 to 69% of the agreed objectives for his overall annual performance review. He was also informed that it will commence on July the 1st, 2024, and end in September the 30th, 2024. As you may recall, in component 1, our general information includes the employee's name, post, and ministry. From our scenario, the employee is Mr. Mark Nkosi, and we have his post and ministry. We also have his supervisor's name, Mr. Samuel King, his post, Senior Training Officer, and the commencement date of the pay, which is July the 1st, with an agreed end date of September the 30th, 2024. In component 2, Mr. Nkosi was informed in writing that the plan identifies serious concerns in his work performance. The plan also reiterates the department's expectations and allows Mr. Nkosi the opportunity to improve in those areas of concern. In the purpose of the plan, it states the purpose of this performance improvement plan is to define serious areas of concern in your work performance as reiterated by the department's expectations and allow you the opportunity to demonstrate improvement and commitment. Within component 2, purpose of the plan, areas of component 3, areas of concern, there were 2 areas identified in Mr. Nkosi's PRDS report. 1, no coordination of the following courses for the first quarter for the financial year 2024. And 2, delivery of training modules for the first quarter not completed. In addition to listing the areas of concern at this stage, the supervisor can also reference the fact that the concerns raised above were highlighted prior to the implementation of the PIC. This can possibly include a date and time those concerns were raised at the previous meeting. So from these areas of concern, those 2 courses were Public Service Document Preparation course and Basic Housekeeping. Component 4 lists the goals related to the areas of concern to be improved in the plan. In the previous quarter, Mr. Nkosi had no coordination in the 4 courses assigned. So we will now look at improving his deficiency in order to give him the opportunity to improve in this particular task. So we look to improve the coordination of 3 courses and the delivery of training modules in 2 assigned courses. To do this, we would need to set some activity goals. So let's look at our activity goals. This sets out the goals, activities, and other areas as seen on the slide. Let us examine Mr. Nkosi action plan. Under the first column, labeled goal, we have the two areas of concern as mentioned earlier. One, coordination of courses, and two, delivery of training. In our second column, we list the activities for action in order to complete the goals identified in column 1. Therefore, the activity column will guide Mr. Nkosi to contact the facilitators for each course, notify participants of acceptance of that course, and implement and assign on assigned dates. Our third column, labeled performance standards, provides timelines for the completion of each task stated in the activity column. Therefore, Mr. Nkosi has 6 weeks prior to the course to contact all facilitators. Similarly, for activity 2, 5 weeks prior, and activity 3, 4 weeks prior. Column 4 lists the resources necessary that will assist the employee. In this case, the ministry follows a standard operating procedure, which is a manual that will further assist Mr. Nkosi with the logistics of carrying out his duties. The fifth column, titled Project Completion Date, simply gives a date that the task should be completed. Therefore, Mr. Nkosi's goal, number 1, should be completed by September the 30th, 2024. After the completion date, the manager or supervisor will need to have a follow-up on the progress made during the second quarter. This is where feedback is provided and a dialogue between the manager and employee occurs. Please note that completion dates will have to be adjusted as you would meet with your supervisor, or managers will meet with their employee during those follow-up meetings. For example, Mr. Nkosi may have encountered a challenge while trying to complete goal number 1 activity, which was to notify participants of acceptance to the course. The network with the list of all the participants' information was inaccessible for 1 week due to technical issues. This is where the employee and manager can sit and resolve such issues that may arise and provide updates to previously held meetings. At this point, the manager can advise on any necessary tools or alternatives to reach the goal, or set a new date for completion of the task. After the follow-up, the manager or supervisor should reinforce continued expectations until the objectives have been reached. In this scenario, Mr. Nkosi, during the remainder of the quarter, was expected to make regular progress on the plan, and any queries or concerns follow up with its manager. It should be noted, when expectations have been met and the employee has responded positively before the expiration date of the plan should be formally closed. We will now move on to how a PIC manages poor performance. As we review Mr. Nkosi's completed PIC, let's now look at how it managed that poor performance. 1, it identifies areas of concern. It identifies the reason behind poor performance, such as reduced standards of work, poor interpersonal skills, lack of commitment, or simply just unable to cope with the task assigned. In Mr. Nkosi's case, he was unable to cope with the task assigned, and the areas of concern were identified. As you can see from the slide, no coordination of the following courses for the first quarter for the financial year. Under the assigned courses assigned. It involves the employee. The PIP provides Mr. Nkosi the opportunity to engage with his senior training officer, Mr. King, to develop a plan designed particularly for him to improve his overall performance. It sets clear objectives. Mr. Nkosi's plan clearly states and identifies what is required from the employee, how the objectives will be reviewed and measured. This is once again seen in component 5 activity goals, where the goals are identified and activities stated. It also states what resources will be used and project completion dates. Number 4, it identifies training and support. It identifies knowledge and skills gaps and provides relevant training for improvement. In Mr. Nkosi's case, he is required to use the ministry's standard operating procedures manual, which will guide him accordingly. Number 5, it allows the supervisor to review progress regularly. Reviews are determined by the supervisor to meet timelines set. In Mr. Nkosi's case, in component 6, follow-up updates, provide such information. Mr. Nkosi will meet with his employee on July the 31st and September the 18th to discuss goals set and to discuss his progress. This brings us to the end of the form, of that form. But just to recap, we would have covered the objectives, state the purpose and benefits of utilizing performance improvement plans, explain the role of the supervisor manager when implementing a plan, list the minimum components of an effective performance improvement plan, and describe how a performance improvement plan is used to improve poor performance. This brings us to the end of this webinar. I want to say thank you for sharing this time with me. I will now hand over to your moderator, Ms. Alison Beth Sullivan, who will provide me with your questions. And it was a pleasure to present this webinar to you.
Thank you, Ms. Eversley. Thank you so much for that. We do have a few questions here for you. Miss Melissa Worrell, she asks, is continuous lateness a valid reason to enact a PIP? Is continuous lateness a valid reason to enact a PIP?
Is continuous lateness is a valid reason. The performance improvement plan is to improve deficiencies in your work performance. Continual lateness may or may not impact that performance. But that would have to be, that is also something to be managed. And that can be implemented in a PIP. Managed time management. That can be used in a PIP.
Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Melissa. The other question will be, what happens if the employee refuses to participate in the PIP? What happens? if the employee refuses to participate in the PIP?
Okay, if employees refuse to participate in a PIP, then the next level, the supervisor and the next level will have that discussion. And if after that discussion with the employee, nothing changes, then you'll send it up to the higher level to deal with the issue.
Okay, thank you so much. Deidre, she wants to know what happens where there is no consensus, read the content of the PIP. There's no consensus. Does it go up to a higher level? I think that's what she answered just now.
Yeah.
Do you mind? Yes, please. You want to reiterate?
Okay, yes, I will reiterate that once the issue has not been settled between the supervisor, the employee, and the next level, then it goes to the higher level, either the PS or the head of the department.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Deidre. We have another question here. At which stage in the PRDS cycle should a PIP be implemented? At which stage in the PRDS cycle should a PIP be implemented?
Okay, as discussed previously, this is during the final appraisal meeting, well, the annual meeting. This is where a final grade is assigned. And once that grade is, as we said, is a 2 or 1, that is where that person would have to be placed on a PIP. This depending on the discussion that was had with his supervisor. So if the supervisor and the employer realize that there are deficiencies in their work performance, then that PIP would have to be implemented.
Thank you
and
so
it's
much.
after, okay, Ms. Alice, after that final appraisal meeting.
Thank you so much, Ms. Eversley. Ms. Claudette Gibbs, she wants to know, in terms of activity goals, what happens if there is no standard operating procedures manual?
If there's no manual to follow, then there's some standard that you need to follow within the organization. You have a policy, we can follow regulations or something like that. But there must be a standard that person would need to follow and to be implemented.
Okay, thank you so much. We also heard from Mr. Smith, Paula Smith. Is a PIP only used for PRDS ratings 2 or 1? And that's the question. Is a PIP only used for PRDS rating 2 or 1?
Okay, in this instance, I would have to say yes. Because if that person is not performing to the standard that is required, if there is any deficiencies in their performance, that PIP would have to be in place. There may be other issues, but a PIP is not required for those issues, as in my opinion, because it's dealing with performance of that employee, the employee's performance.
Okay. Another question to you. What are the responsibilities of the supervisor if you are not provided with a plan? I'm going to think that is if the employee is not provided with a plan, what are the responsibilities of the supervisor?
If the employee is not provided with a work
I'm going to think
plan,
that they
what?
mean the employee. It says, what are the responsibilities of the supervisor if you are not provided with a plan?
I'm assuming this is a work plan. If the supervisor is not provided with a plan, I'm not quite clear on which plan that they're speaking about. Is it their work plan? Is it what plan?
The person does not state. I'm not sure if the person can type it in the chat. We'll come back to that, Ms. Eversley.
Okay.
Hopefully we get that response soon. Another question to you. Okay, this person wants to grateful if you would show the first slide of the benefits of a PIP. Okay, we can do that afterwards. We can go back to that, Miss Eversley.
And go back right now?
No, we can go back to that after. Let's look
Okay.
for another question for you. What would happen if the employee gets a 2, but nothing has been put in place to address the 2 or help the employee to improve, and they continue to get 2s? What redress does the employee have in that case?
What recourse does the employee have?
Yes.
If that employee is continuously receiving a 2, obviously that is a matter for the supervisor, because the supervisor must realize that this officer is not performing to the standard that is required. So obviously that supervisor has a responsibility to that employee. So in other words, that supervisor may be failing that employee because no guidance is being provided to that employee how they need to improve in their performance and their work tasks.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Another question to you. If there is some improvement after the PIP, but there is still a deficit, do you restart the PIP or use the PRDS to continue the review of the employee?
Right, good question. Once the PIP has been completed and that deficiency that area has been corrected, going forward, then that PRDS can be used to correct what other things that are needed. Because then going down the road, once those areas have been identified again in that PRDS report, it may be another area where the officer is failing or not performing to the standard. So obviously then the PIP then will have to be part of that work plan going forward for the next cycle.
Okay, thank
you. I hope
you.
that answered that question.
Okay, another question to you. The 360-degree feedback method of appraisal, the person is saying, is more objective than this method. Why has this approach never been considered in the public service?
Well, the 360-degree, I cannot speak on that, but that is at a different level. So that will take further discussion. And that's the best way that I can answer that question.
Okay. Well, let me add to that, Wendy. This is not that the approach was never been considered. It is in our performance guidelines. It is there, as Wendy would have alluded earlier in the slides. It is there. Persons may not recognize it, but it has been there from the inception. All right. Next question for you, Wendy.
Yes,
what
please.
happens where there is no consensus? Read the content of a PIP. Does it go up to a higher level? Is the template for the PIP used in the presentation on the ministry's website? Okay, so it's many questions in one. All right, it's not on the website as yet, but it will be there. It's going to be there at a later date. All right, so what happens where there is no consensus? Read the content of the PIP, Wendy.
Okay. If there is no consensus, because the consensus is that everyone has agreed that this is the way to go forward. The employee has recognized he has a deficiency, and the supervisor also, and they agreed on the area that needs to be developed, that deficiency that needs to be improved. So there must be consensus. If, as you said, there is no consensus, then it has to be taken to the next level. And if it's not settled there, then it has to go to the head of the department or the PS. There must be consensus.
Yes, please. Thank you. Is the PIP only used after the final appraisal meeting?
Yes, because after the final meeting, that person is assigned a grade. And once those grades are total and the end result is there, then that area that officer is falling in will be identified, and that pay applied for the next cycle going forward. They'll be part of the next work plan.
Okay, thank you. The other question here, this person was wondering if a PIP would be useful for the more nebulous performance issues such as poor customer service attitudes or poor attendance. Would a PIP be useful for that?
Yes, it should, because those areas of poor customer service would have been identified, and that would be an area of concern. And that is if it's part of the officer's daily duties, yes, then that PIP is necessary to provide the necessary training in order to correct those issues.
Okay. Thank you so much. Another question to you. At each progress meeting, the officer wants to know, the officer's performance is graded. So, to be clear, only on the third and final progress meeting is the PIP to be instituted, or after the second low performance should the PIP be instituted.
I am not quite clear on the second lower performance. Okay, a PIP, as was highlighted in the webinar, is applied at the final meeting, the annual progress meeting. That is where the final grade is given. At that time, because you have 3 meetings, the first 2 progress meetings, that person, that officer, that supervisor will be able to gauge how that officer is performing. Say, for instance, the first progress meeting, they receive a 2. The second progress meeting, which takes place in December, they receive a 3. And the final annual appraisal meeting, they receive, say, a 2. When that total is added together and the result is a 2, then those areas of concern are identified, and that PIP can be put in place in order to rectify those performance issues.
Okay, thank you. I
I
think
hope
you would have
that's quite clear.
answered, I think you would have answered this other question as well with that. And the person is asking if a PIP is done after the final meeting, will this not have an impact on the new work plan starting April?
That is a good question. It shouldn't. It will become part of the officer's work plan going forward. It's part of the work plan because there are areas identified which needs improvement. So even though they have a work plan, those duties, those objectives in that work plan still has to be documented so that an area which is part of their objectives that officer needs development in will be part of that work plan, of that PIP. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Another question, what happens when a PIP is unsuccessful after going through the process?
If a PIP is unsuccessful, I am assuming, meaning that all interventions have failed. Well, you have the PIP, and you would have hoped to correct those deficiencies. But there are other interventions that can be considered if that PIP has not helped that employee. There are other interventions which can be discussed, which must be discussed in order to see then what action is to be taken going forward.
Thank you. We have another question here. What if an employee receives a 2 because she or he prefers to give verbal reports and is more comfortable doing so, but the supervisor insists on receiving written reports? How can this be addressed? You want me to repeat that, Wendy?
Yes, please.
All right. If an employee receives a 2 because he or she prefers to give verbal reports and is more comfortable doing so, but the supervisor insists on receiving written reports, how can this be addressed?
Okay, that's a tough question. Because if the officer prefers to give verbal report, obviously in their job description, does it say that they have to give a verbal report? Because a report, written report is information going forward that can be used further on, later on. So a verbal report, I don't think would suffice. So in other words, then that person is not performing, they're deciding to do what they want to do, but that is not part of their job description. They have to put, and I am sure that is not in the job description. To give a verbal report is probably just to update, on what is happening, but if it's a report that it needs to be substantiated with documentation. So I would answer that question, that they need to have a written report.
Okay, thank you so much. Time is running out on us. We have a few more questions here. We just give Grace 2 more questions at this time. And this question is, while an officer is completing a PIT, do you still complete a PRDS work plan and PRDS evaluation, or do you stop the PRDS assessment and only focus on the PIT?
Okay, a PIP is only in place to correct some areas that the officer is not, that is a deficiency in the officer's work performance. There are other areas the officer would be engaged in. So I don't, the PRDS should not be stopped in order to have that PIP continue. The report still has to be done. So that is, the PIP is done in conjunction along with the PRDS report.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, we know you have posed many questions here. We will allow one more question, and these others will be responded to accordingly and will be sent back to you. All right, the answers will be given to you at a later date. One more question to you, Ms. Eversley. What action is taken to address poor performance during the PRDS cycle?
To address poor performance. Okay, say for instance, the cycle starts from the 1st of April, the first progress meeting, July to August, that poor performance has been identified. The officer and the supervisor has the opportunity, they have the opportunity to sit together to discuss those areas and to see how best they can be rectified going forward. You don't have to wait until the final appraisal meeting to deal with the issue. It can be dealt with during the progress meetings, or even before the progress meetings. You have identified this area of deficiency, so that area can be discussed, and whatever plan or probably the officer may need training, whatever is needed in order to correct that issue can be put in place if before you reach that annual appraisal meeting. So the aim is to do everything possible throughout the course of those progress meetings to rectify any performance deficiencies before you reach that end. Before you reach the end of that cycle. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, please.